Hello and welcome to Shankism. This is episode 1. Kind of backtracking a little bit here. You'll see what I'm talking about in later episodes. But this is geography and historical skills. It's going to start you out the year getting the skills that will build the foundation for the rest of ancient world history. On the left-hand side, main ideas. That's not necessary. You don't necessarily have to, but this is what colleges and universities do for the majority. It's to organize your thoughts. Essentially, why you take notes isn't just so there's more work for you. It's so that you have an extra brain. There's a lot of information you can store up here, but everyone needs help, and a way to do that is to make another brain on a piece of paper. You put main ideas on the left-hand side. Any questions that you have, you kind of write down, and then you can ask me later. Doesn't matter if it's in class or virtual, email, whatever. Any keywords, ideas, you write down on the right-hand side. Important dates, people, places, you want to underline, you want to star things, especially when I'll say, write this down. This is very important. Star it, underline it, draw a smiley face, whatever it is that you need to do to get it stuck in your head. Repeat it. If you have to write it a couple times, do that. Brainstorm. Maybe make little brainstorm bubbles. Right? That's where you can really personalize on the right-hand side. Any diagrams, draw lots of pictures that pertain to the notes. Don't just doodle on anything. You can do that another time. That do it on things that, if we're talking about mummies, draw a mummy if you're a good artist. Draw a stick figure, whatever it is to help you. I'll give a lot of acronyms like PEMDAS, things like that. That's obviously math, but I have acronyms for history that will help you remember. Right? And at the bottom, you want to write a summary of your notes in your own words. Relative location, meaning uses local landmarks or prior knowledge to determine imprecise location. So it's not exact. All right, just kind of like in the vicinity, in the area. That's relative. It's relatively close, right? The other one is absolute. When something's absolute, it is perfect. It's you can't argue with it. That's when you use latitude and longitude lines, and basically think of it like your GPS location, your exact location on this planet, using those two sets of imaginary lines, which we'll talk about here in the next slide. And that's to your precise location. So you have relative location and you have absolute location. You can write those down. Those are relatively easy to remember. Latitude and longitude. So the Earth is divided by imaginary lines. The lines of 0 degrees divide the Earth into halves, providing our hemispheres. Maybe you've heard of the northern, the southern, the eastern, and western hemispheres. Think of it like cutting an orange into 4 pieces, 4 equal halves. That's kind of what we've done here to determine our absolute location. Latitude. These are the parallels. These are horizontal lines, okay, that specify the north and the south position of the point of the surface. So if you look at my notes that I have here, I have things are blued, things are bold, things are red, and I do this periodically. You can write everything down that you want. By all means, if you need to do that, that's the way you function and you're okay with it, do it. But I'm trying to make the notes more manageable. I'm trying to make it so that you get the information you need and it sticks, not filling your head with an abundance of information that you won't be using. So if you see what I've done here, latitude, north and south, boom, there you go. That's it. Rather than writing down horizontal lines that specify north and south positions, so on and so forth, it gets right to the point. In bold there, I have equator. Now, you could write that down if you want. I'm sure you probably heard of the equator, kind of that horizontal line that is at 0 degrees that you see on the map there. That's red here, kind of running through here. In South America, that's where it runs through, and obviously it goes all the way around the world, but that's kind of where we know it. Longitude, these are the meridians, vertical lines that specify the east and west, right? And that would be, I think that one runs through England. That's where the prime meridian is. Longitude, latitude, that's how we break apart the Earth, essentially. These are imaginary lines. Humans made these up. I don't see these lines from space. Okay? I don't look in the dirt in King George and say, hey, there's the 35th parallel. Or the 35th longitude, latitude. You know, like, you don't see that. Okay? We made them up. Types of maps. So the Earth's surface is represented in many ways. You could have, these are two-dimensional maps, so you can kind of lay them out, all right, and look at them. You know, obviously different than 3D, which would be at the bottom there, or sorry, at the bottom wordage down there at the bottom, as you see here. But I'm talking about the globes. We know what globes are, but let's talk about two other types of maps. Political maps are, think of it like you're looking from space. All right, you're looking down on Earth. You're on the International Space Station, and you're looking at Earth. Hey, there's Earth. I'm not going to see any of those lines, right? I'm not going to see the parallel. I'm not going to see the longitude and latitude lines. Now, a political map, now I don't really have a political map on this one, but I'll show you one right here, okay? And what this map is, it shows political boundaries of countries and usually includes cities. So if I'm in the International Space Station, I'm looking at the Earth. I'm not going to see, you know, boundaries, political boundaries, meaning I'm not going to see, if you look here in the globe map here, you see all these different countries that are here, right? Well, these countries, if I'm looking from Earth, I'm not going to see that. I'm going to see something like you see on the bottom here. All right, I'm going to see where there's desert. I'm going to see where there's lots of green and trees and forests and things like that. We humans made up boundaries. You know, this is the equivalent of if you're sharing a room with your brother and sister and you literally draw a line down the middle of the room, say, this is my spot, this is your spot. It's the same thing, okay? You know, this is just the adult version of it. You know, this is my side of the room. This is your side of the room. But they also have the names of cities. They have the names of the countries there. It's not like you look and like Virginia is written in the dirt and you can see it from space. All right? We named this area Virginia. Maybe in 1,000 years it's going to be named something different. Maybe in 100 years, you know, it could be some random other group of people that conquer America or something, and they name it Robadooey. I don't know, Robadooey, and they make different boundaries then too. So that's what a political map is. Like physical map. A physical map shows the geographic forms of the Earth, usually depicting mountains and deserts and forests and elevation. So think of a physical map. What you see on the bottom there, that's a physical map. What you would basically see from space in a 2D format, right? So if I look there, I can see Greenland and the top the white portion here. The white portion here. It's snow. I would see that from the International Space Station. Over here is the Sahara. It's a desert. Okay, I would see that from space. I don't see the political boundaries here. I don't see countries that that scribble like their name in the dirt. You know, they're not doing that. So those are the two main ones. I think you guys know what a globe is. I'm hoping you know what a globe is. If not, I've already explained it. So this is just the international, the date line, okay? What this is, again, we've made this up. This is just kind of time zones of the world. It's broken up into hours. If you look at the top, I know it's kind of blurry, and I apologize for that. But think of it, as the Earth rotates, the sun isn't going to hit on every single spot simultaneously, right? So we'll be on a different portion of the day than, say, Europe, because the sun had already hit there. Okay, once that kind of crosses the prime meridian, you see the hours are going back, right? So when the sun hits the East Coast, let's say it is, you guys are in school, it's 8 o'clock on the eastern side here in Virginia, and you can see all that there on the, if I show it right here, right there. That's all at 8 o'clock. We go back here. They're actually an hour behind us, okay? So they would be at 7 o'clock when we're at our 8 o'clock. because the sun hasn't hit there. The sun, it takes time, right? And then over here in like the the Midwest and so forth, they're 2 hours behind, so they're at 6 o'clock. And then you go here on the West Coast, they're at 5 o'clock. All right. And again, we made this up. This is not something that is exact. Okay. But it's better than better than nothing, I guess. But we made this up. These are time zones. You don't have to remember, but just kind of know that if you make a phone call here, in America, make sure if you're making it all the way across the country that they might be asleep or just waking up. Be really early. So you have to kind of be aware of that. Just because it's morning or just because it's the afternoon in your country doesn't mean it's the afternoon in somebody else's country. Measuring time. This one is BC means before Christ. So why, if you look at the timeline on your left-hand side here, this is going to be very, very important for you to know throughout the entire year. All right? Because I'm going to mention dates, and you have to understand what these dates are. Dates before the year 0 are grouped in as before Christ, also known as BC. All right? So Christ was not the first person on this planet. Right? Things happened and occurred before he was born. Okay? Think about it like yourself. Things happened before you were born. Okay? The reason why we kind of pin, Jesus, because he's an important person, throughout history, obviously for religious standpoint, but that's kind of what, the Western world and a lot of other countries have kind of used throughout the years. But not everyone practices Christianity. We've got the Christianity, just about 2 billion people practice Christianity in the world. Well, there's 7.5 billion people. That means that 5.5 billion people don't practice Christianity, and can't really use that. And not everyone can. So they made a more politically correct term, BCE. BCE is before the Common Era. It's blanket, right? It's just plain. It's not denoting any religion, any political beliefs. It's just before the Common Era. It's just a way for us to categorize time. People living before Christ weren't thinking they're living before Christ. They're not in 100 BC thinking, hey, in 100 years Jesus Christ will be born, and then we'll start from year 0 and work our way up. It's not like that. Okay, it's something that we kind of pinned later on so we could categorize time better. Dates after 0 are grouped as AD. AD does not mean after death. It does not mean after death. It means Anno Domini or Anno Domini, which means in the year of our Lord, meaning the year Christ was born. Okay, so you know how time started for you when you were born? Well, time for the world, in this case the Christian world, all right, starts with Jesus. But again, not everyone believes in Christ, so you've got to get some type of politically correct term that doesn't come up with a religion, doesn't denote a political belief. So they came up with Common Era, CE. I'll use both throughout the entire year, just to kind of get yourself familiar, because you'll see both. You'll see AD, and you'll see BC, and you'll see BCE, and you'll see CE. It means the same thing. BC and BCE are the same thing. One's politically correct, the other one is specific, okay, to Christianity. That's probably what Christians would use, all right? AD and CE are the same. CE is just more politically correct. Simple. Now the timeline too, if maybe this will help you, maybe you know about number lines. Think of a number line. Think about how to the right it gets positive, and then you have 0, right? Well, you start going to the left, all right? And then after you go past 0 to the left, what happens is you get in the negatives. And that's kind of how this works. So you would go from 0 going to the left, 1 BC. 2 BC, 3 BC, 4 BC, 5 BC to the left. But if I went to the right in AD, I go from 0, the year Christ was born, Anno Domini, 1 AD, 2 AD, or I could use 1 CE, 2 CE, and so on and so forth. Sooner you get that, the way easier this class will be. And because categorizing time is very difficult, okay? I try to think of a way. You might want to do a little activity on your own. Think of the year you're born. So let's see here, 2006, 2007, you were born. Think of important dates in your family's history. Okay, so maybe your parents got married, let's just say 20 years before you. Okay, so if you were born in 2007, they were married 20 years ago, that would mean that they were married in 1987. So on your timeline, your individual timeline, that would be like 20 BC for you, right? 20 years before you were born. You could say if your name is Carl, before Carl, all right? But as the years go on and get closer and closer to your birth in 2007, you're going to the right and you're kind of counting down to 0. And once you are born, then you're counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is just measuring time. We kind of just do it in centuries, and centum meaning 100. Think of like cents. How many pennies, how many cents are in a dollar? 100. All right, it's kind of, or a percent, per cent. Okay, technically the C's in Latin would be sound, so centum. But I don't have anything highlighted, but just think about it as in, we are in the 21st century. Okay, because the first century is from the years 1 to years 100. That's the first century. Historical sources. Historians group sources into 2 categories. Primary. Okay, this is created at the time under study. So these are legitimate sources. We will try our best to study primary sources throughout this course. Examples, you probably do want to write the examples down to help you understand primary sources. An artifact, meaning a man-made object, something that was from that time that was made. Okay, a diary entry. All right, they're recording everything that they're feeling, everything they're seeing. Some type of document, the Declaration of Independence, that is a primary resource. Okay, Anne Frank's diary, right? Primary resource. A recording. Now, there are no recordings from my time, from the ancient world history time, because that technology had not been invented yet. But once video became a mainstay, that is a legit, whatever recording it may be, video or audio, those are primary resources. It's from that era. It's that person speaking. It's that person being videoed. Secondary resources are any source of information that is created later by someone who did not experience firsthand or participate in the events. Okay? So maybe I'm a historian, researching it. Okay? A history textbook is a secondary resource. That's not from that era. That's from what historians have gathered and put into the textbook. All right. Now, a biography, a newspaper, something like that, that's just a secondhand account of what happened. No, not people that were actually there. Right. So just a secondary is a history textbook, a biographer, a newspaper, etc. So this has been the first episode of Shankism. You'll see later on that I started with Japan, so the episode numbers are going to be a little bit out of whack, but this is kind of me starting kind of over, as you'll see. But this has been episode 1, Geography and Historical Skills of Shankism.